I bet you thought, oh my goodness, I'm never going to learn that. And why in the world would I have to know all this stuff? All I want to do is just paint. Well, this is a good question, and you know what? I've heard it many times. And I guarantee you by the end of this segment, you're never going to look at color the same way. And you also will understand why it is so important for us artists to know this pigment wheel. So let's just jump right in and let's get started. The first dimension of color is a hue. So if I take this blue, and all I want to do is just change the hue of that particular color. So now I can just move around. You see all these different slices of all these different color families. The second dimension of color is our value. Value describes the lightness and darkness of a color. The value scale actually sits in the center of our three-dimensional space. The third dimension of color is intensity or chroma. Intensity describes how bright or how dull a color is. When we take a look at this color space, the brightest color sits towards the outside of our ring. If I take this color and I move it closer towards the inside, it becomes duller and grayer, and when I come in the center of it, it is gray. Why? Because in the center of our color space runs the grayscale. Now let's put this pigment wheel into practice for us artists, right? And why it is so important for us. Okay, here I have two green pigments. And I'm thinking, well, they look pretty green to me. Okay, but in reality, one green leans a little bit more towards the yellow, while the other leans a little bit more towards the blue. So when I look at my pigment chart right here, we plotted the colors for you. You can see, even though this is green, okay, one leans a little bit further over into the yellow green, and the other one leans a little bit more into the blue green. That's going to become important to us when we start mixing color. And here is the key. The pigment wheel is an important tool for us artists when we try to mix color. Let's take a look at something else. Let's look at the blues. I have two blues. The difference on this is that one of the blues leans a little bit more on the green side, while the other blue leans a little bit towards the red-violet side. Towards the purple side, I would say. Wow. Now, again, that is important for us. And we're going to do some mixing exercise here in a minute, just to put what we learned into practice, right? Okay, I'm going to go and let's just say I'm going to work with my blues. Okay, right now I have an ultramarine blue and I have a phthalo blue. And I also know that if I take yellow and blue, I get green, don't I? So if I were to work with these cool two colors, which one of the colors, which one of the blues you would think would give me nicer green? If I use the ultramarine blue or if I take the phthalo blue? Okay, well, you know what? Let's just mix it and we will find out, right? Oops, I use this. Okay, okay, just put these out. I just love to mix. Mixing is not hard if you just understand the basics. Okay. All right. Okay. Since I've taught this many times, I know that most of you guys are going to tell me that if I take the ultramarine blue and the yellow, I get a nicer green. Okay, well, let's just try that and see. So we're going to take our ultramarine blue, and I'm going to go and just add a little bit of green to that, yellow to that. That is a pretty green, isn't it? Okay, clean my brush. And I do want you to do these exercises with me. I know some of you already done this, but do it again. Train your eye to see the differences in color. Okay, now I'm going to go and take the phthalo. And the other thing I need to tell you is this phthalo blue is very strong. It's a very, very strong pigment. Has a lot of pigment in it. Take some yellow to that. Now look. Which one gives me a nicer, brighter green? Yep, it's the phthalo blue and the yellow. And now you're going to say, well, how in the world did that happen? I don't understand. Okay, let's take a look at this. I have a marker, and as you notice, I printed it, the pigment wheel out, and I put it into a sleeve so I can play with that. Okay, what I'm going to do now, take my marker. Okay, I'm going to find my ultramarine blue. I used ultramarine blue and I used Hansa yellow, right, which is right there. So I'm going to take this and I'm just going to draw a straight line through this now. Okay, there we go. Okay, now I'm going to take the phthalo blue and draw a line. Okay, which one of my greens, see when I mix these? Okay, which one of my greens stays brighter? Okay, if each one of these are rings of intensity, and as you move in you become duller, look, if I use the ultramarine blue and I mix it with the Hansa yellow, it pulls it right through the second ring. Definitely dulls it right down. Whereas if I use the phthalo blue and the Hansa yellow, you see it stays much brighter. Now you're going to think, aha, that kind of makes sense. I like that idea. And I always wondered why people tell me if I take red and green, why it dulls down. Okay, and I'm going to explain that to you too. Look, if I take, let's just say I take naphtha red. I take a naphtha red in the green, right? And I draw a line. I'll just go right through the phthalo green yellow, or we can just take the, let's just take the phthalo green blue because you have it, right? Okay, so I draw a line. Look, depending on the amount of green that I put into my red, see how my color comes right through the center? Okay, that means that it's going to turn gray because I pulled the color towards the center. I take my ultramarine blue and I am just going to pop it right in here. Okay, right in there for now. Then I'm going to go and take me orange. Okay, it's right across from it. More yellow in it. Alright. Okay. Now what I'm doing now, I'm going to mix these two colors, right? So you can see exactly what happens here. I know logically if I'm going to add blue to my orange, it pulls it closer to the center, and I have gray in the center. Okay, so I'm just going to pick up a little bit of blue. I'm just going to sneak in on it, okay? You see how that start pouring in a little bit more? See that? See how that becomes grayer? Look at that. And all of a sudden, it is gray. Look. Now, I'm going to come back and I'm going to continue adding more blue to it now, right? Keep adding blue. Okay. Okay. You see that? I've now created the scale from my orange to my blues. And all that goes right through the pigment wheel and has all to do with understanding the pigment wheel.